and welcome to the Happy Hour at Jamie Ivey podcast. I'm your host, Jamie, and I'm really thankful that you're joining us today. Every week, I invite a girlfriend to join me on the show, and we chat about the big things in life, the little things in life, and everything in between. Before we get going with today's show, I want to thank one of our sponsors for the show, and that is Lily Jade. Lily Jade is a mom-created company. I love stories like this. A mom saw a problem, and so she figured out a way to fix it. When Megan Wood's oldest daughter, Caroline, was born, Megan found herself at odds with the endless parade of unstylish, impractical diaper bags. Anyone ever felt that? Pretty, but exorbitantly priced and not functional. Affordable, but disposable. Functional, but ugly. Things got so frustrating that she even found herself carrying a soft-sided cooler. Okay, I'm going to have to ask her about that next time I see her. Finally, in frustration, she sketched every mom's dream, the perfect diaper bag. Lily Jade bags are made with 100% premium leather. You can smell it the minute you open the box, and I have one, so I can attest to that. Many of their styles also convert to backpacks. This is one of the customer's favorite things. It's a backpack when you want your hands free, and it's a handbag when you don't. Every Lily Jade bag comes with a removable, washable, multi-pocket insert. If you've ever had a bottle spill in your bag, you are going to understand why this is genius. You know that multi-pocket insert I just told you about? It's really like 14 pockets. Your life can finally achieve some organization. Thank you. And you can hand the insert with baby's things off to daycare or grandma, and voila, you have a beautiful handbag that's for you. Y'all, I have one of these and I have no babies, so they are perfect. I use it as my computer bag. These are beautiful diaper bags. We'll have all the links over at jamieivey.com that you can check them out. For more information, go visit them online. It's lilyjade.com, and that's L-I-L-Y, jade.com. Guys, you're listening to episode number 107 with Deidra Riggs. Deidra is a mom and a wife and an author and a teacher, and I have been wanting to chat with her for a long time. I've been following her for a while online, and I'm very impressed with everything she's doing, and just finally our schedules connected, and I'm really so excited that I got to spend the hour with her, and I think you're going to be as well. We chatted when the Olympics were on, so it's been a while ago, but I hope you're still going to love it. And I told her about my debut that I had as an Olympic athlete. You'll have to listen to find out more about that. So here is my conversation with Deidra.
Hey.
Hey, Deidra.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good.
Welcome to the Happy Hour.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Isn't it fun to have a happy hour like 10 in the morning?
Yeah, right?
Exactly. Which, you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm going to ask a dumb question. Are you on Central Time Zone or Eastern?
Nope, it's not a dumb question. I am on Central Time.
Okay, so we're both having, well, I'm drinking coffee because I'm still drinking coffee at 10 a.m. because I have been lately with my kids in the summer, I've been drinking coffee till like 1. I just go downstairs and keep making more coffee. I think it's going to kill me.
Yeah, I quit drinking coffee a while ago. I didn't drink coffee forever until, I didn't even drink coffee in college. When I got married, and my husband's a huge, he drinks pots of coffee a day.
Right.
So I started drinking coffee then, but it's not my jam. It really, I can take it or leave it. Sometimes, like in the winter, I'll have it because of the flavor. But if I drink coffee, I drink decaf. Isn't that weird?
Well, it's not weird at all because, like you, I didn't drink coffee in college. In fact, I would drink it. I say I was like a socially drinker,
right?
Where I would drink coffee if we were like at an event, and I would get decaf, and it was mostly cream and sugar.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was like a dessert. And then I had my second child, and that's when I started drinking coffee. And I think for me, it's like habit.
Yeah.
I just really enjoy that cup of coffee. I love it in the school year, taking the kids to school with a cup of coffee. I don't know why.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, with the habit piece of it, because I do. That fixing the coffee and pouring I use this creamer, French vanilla creamer in my decaf, and watching it turn from, the dark chocolate color to pretty much milk color based on cream rice is, it's like a ritual. It is a beautiful thing. So I get that.
What does a morning look like for you? Because we just jumped in here, and in a minute I'm going to have you tell us about your family. But just so it's you and your husband at home, you've grown children.
I have grown children.
So
I
your
live in an
morning
empty nest.
Yeah, your morning looks different than mine. What does a morning look like for you?
It's so slow, which is
Do you love it?
do. I do. I have always been a late night person. Like, I could stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning, no problem. And part of that is because I'm an introvert and that's when everybody's gone to bed and, it's
You're
just my
alone.
time. Yeah. And so I usually get up later. So, and now later for me is 7:30, which I recognize is not really later,
Well,
but
true, but there are
you know,
mamas getting up at 5 a.m. So we
exactly.
get
And
it.
I salute you. I salute you. My
Hmm.
husband, he's usually like around 8:30 at night. He's like, "All right, this is the end of this day." And he's heading up to bed. And so he gets up like at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And he usually when I wake up, he's been to the gym, he's had his first pot of coffee, he's done his whatever he's going to do. He's a pastor, so he's probably been to the church and, knocked out a few to-do items on his list. And then we meet together in the kitchen when I get up at about 7:30. And we usually watch the news together and not all of it, like just the highlights,
Hmm.
because I mean, that's about all we can stand.
Right.
And then we cook separate breakfasts and he eats his and I eat mine. And
Okay, what do you
eventually,
mean separate breakfasts? Like y'all
like,
don't like the same thing?
right, exactly. Yeah.
So
Like
what will
he
you eat?
I usually eat like yogurt with some granola and some nuts in it, or some fruit, or something like that. And he will eat eggs and bacon and toast and you know, that real like a real
Uh-huh.
breakfast. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to be like a pancake bagel eater, in
Mm-hmm.
the morning, but things have changed physically for me, and so I must be a little bit lighter in the morning.
Cut out all those big heavy carbs first thing in the
Yeah,
morning.
exactly. Exactly.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
that is just my morning looks
Yeah.
way different in the summer versus the school year,
Right.
obviously.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Right.
my kids are getting older. So if you can think back, my youngest is 8
Uh-huh.
and my oldest is 12. So
Oh.
my 12-year-old has been sleeping some days till like
Right.
11:30.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And he stays
Hmm.
up super late with my husband and they're watching Lost this summer.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay,
it's their
cool.
new thing
Yep.
and I love that they have it. And
Cute.
so
Yeah.
that
Sweet.
he's sleeping late, but my 8-year-old still usually like late for her is 8.
Okay.
But I've been able to sleep late as well because they're
Yeah.
big kids. They can
Right.
handle themselves. And so, but when school year starts, I mean, we got a whole nother ball game happening. And for
Yeah,
us,
and
that's
so
on Monday.
well, and it's this Monday. So
Hmm.
how will that transition be? Because the kids here in Lincoln went back to school this Monday. Today is what, Thursday? See,
Hmm.
that's another thing about this life. I don't ever really know what
You
day
don't
it
know what's happening with the schools.
is. Yeah, and so they started school on Monday, and then Tuesday they had early dismissal, right?
Oh.
And so my husband and I were laughing because we said, "Yep, that they were just testing it out. Like, let's do this full day on Monday and see what this transition is
Is
like."
this actually going to work? Right.
Right. Yeah. So, what will that be like for you to make that transition from summer to school? How do you do that?
Well, I won't do it well. I'll tell you that. I proposed to my husband earlier in the week. I said, I think that everyone needs to be in bed by 10. I mean, and that's in the school year, that's super late. So
Yeah, it is.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, everyone needs to be going to bed by 10. And then I think we should wake them up by 8. And
Okay.
he said, I think that's dumb. Just let them have their summer. And so myself as well. I mean, I should be getting up
Yeah.
earlier than I am now, but we're just going to cold turkey. Monday
All
is
right.
going to kill us all.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the way it should be.
I
I
know.
think it just is like a rite of passage that marks the
Because his
transition.
point was, do you want to go to bed earlier and get up early? I'm like,
Right.
no, I want to savor every
Exactly.
9 a.m. wake up call I can have.
Yes. What that reminds me when my kids were younger, and when my kids were really young, I was home during the day with them, and it's especially in the summertime, something would happen, and I would have to administer some type of punishment,
Mm-hmm.
which would mean like no TV. Usually is what I chose. No
Yes.
TV for we didn't have a whole bunch of screens back then, but no TV for a week or whatever. And I would, my husband would come home from work and I tell him, well, we had a little adventure today and now we have no TV for a week. And he'd be like, no, that punishes all of us.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. My friend yesterday, we just had a conversation about disciplining our kids.
Yeah.
And she said that her mom had given her the advice, and it's so true. It's just what you said. Her mom had told her, her oldest is 4. So, she's given her this advice, hey, you're going to have to start disciplining and all kinds of stuff. And she said, just remember that every discipline that you give them is probably going to discipline you as well.
It's so true. So true. What great advice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like in some of my, like, I wouldn't call them worst parenting moments. I would just say where I've like kind of not been strong and stuck to what I've said, maybe undisciplined moments have been when I have said, here's your discipline. And then I've realized, oh no, I don't like that.
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that. Because if you like can't watch TV, then we can't all watch TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Crazy. So you are empty nesting.
Yes.
Which I can't wait to talk about this because just in hearing some of your thoughts about it, I think my husband and I have had some of the same conversations that sound like you and your husband had years and years ago about preparing for that.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, you'll understand when I say this, it's unimaginable to me that there won't be children in this house.
I know.
I mean, I know you get that because you probably used to think the same thing. And now it's just you and your husband.
Yeah, it is. My kids are 25 and 27. So they've been gone for a while, although it's true, they do come back. And so, just that is the truth, the fact of life, at least in this generation. And, but when they were little, and you know this, when they're little, it's like they are all you think about and you can't help it. It's not like, people can tell you, don't let them run your world or whatever they're going to say, but you can't help it. That's just, it's the nature of parenting, I think.
Yes.
And so one morning our kids went to school and I was standing in the doorway watching them go. And my husband, I remember he came and stood next to me and he said, one day the kids are going to leave the house for good, which I was like, whoa, what?
No, this can't happen.
It's not true. And he said, and when they're gone, I want to make sure that you and I still like each other, that we don't look at each other and say, who are you? And why are you here? And what am I supposed to do with you now?
Yeah.
So from that moment, and I've asked him, where did that come from? How did you know to think like that and to say that to me? And he doesn't know, no one said it to him. He just had a realization, an epiphany. And it was probably one of the most pivotal experiences we've had together because from that moment we decided we were going to begin to build an empty nest. So like we weren't really able to build a nest egg, but we could build an empty nest. Right. And so we were just intentional about remembering that time was coming when it would just be the two of us. And so we were, we parented together and I think we did okay. I think we did a good job of parenting. We weren't perfect, but our priority always was that one day it's just going to be me and you, and that we started out just me and you and we're going to end just me and you. And we want those years to be fun.
Yeah.
And so we did.
Okay. I love that. And my husband and I just had this conversation, no lie, last night. And so I'm going to need you to put some practicality to this because my husband, Aaron, and I, we have, if anyone has been listening to anything I've been saying for the last 8 years of whatever time I've been saying stuff, we are advocates of dating. Big time.
Yes, absolutely.
And we have come to the realization that it was actually, and this sounds crazy, it was actually easier for us to date when our kids were younger.
Yeah.
Because they had zero commitments. All they needed to do was eat and sleep. Like literally, they had nothing to do outside of our home. And so for us, it was just a matter of getting a babysitter.
Get a babysitter.
That's easy. Well, now we have these children that are in football and baseball and softball and band and school. They're doing so many things. And Aaron and I, this has been a constant conversation in our house, even this summer. Yeah. Even with, like I told you, how Caden, my oldest, and my husband are watching Lost. Yes. Well, that kind of, I can watch it with them. That's fine. Right. But it does take away time that Aaron and I used to have. Like, we used to do that at night. And now this is happening. And then I said to Aaron last night, I said, you know what? I said, we have always said that these kids are not going to rule our life. Yeah. We always have said that. Don't let your kids rule your life because they're going to leave one day and you need to love your husband. And I feel like I need to practically understand how to still let them do their thing. And I want them to do that. And I am 100% supportive of that. And still always, and Aaron and I be okay with we might actually go on a date once a month. Like what,
Yeah.
and that's, it seems so crazy because we used to preach like weekly
Right.
dates.
Right.
And now I'm like monthly dates, monthly dates. Yeah. So like, talk to me practically. What does that look like as your kids got older? Because
Yeah.
I think when they're younger, here's what we
Mhm.
say: get a babysitter.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
That's easy to me. It's when
And
they get
then,
older,
yeah, we
Deidre,
had,
I'm dying.
well, even we had, when they were younger, we just had friends and we all
Yeah.
were committed to this. And so we'd share the babysitting thing with one another. But you're right, as they get older and they get more involved in stuff, it's more difficult. And especially in that season where you are. So, one practical thing, and I think much of this practicality has to do with how we think about it, right?
Mm,
So, that you're in a season right now where it's not as practical to go every week on a date with your
mm-hmm.
husband and
Right.
and to be okay with that and to know, right now this
Yeah.
is where we are in this season, and until one of our children gets their driver's license, which we will celebrate with them,
Yes, we will.
you know
And you
we
will
have.
now be in charge of two of your siblings.
Yes,
So,
exactly. Yeah, and that's okay, to
uh-huh.
know that in this season and for right now, this is how it is. Now, when I don't know why I asked my grandmother this, but I was like 7, 8, or 9 years old. My grandmother was a single parent and she raised 4 kids and they all grew up and went to college and left and lived far away from her for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Like she could, like not next door, at least an hour drive away and then further. My dad was like half a country away. And I asked her, I said, so what's it like to have all your kids grow up and leave you? And she said to me, you know what? I raised my children to change the world, and they can't do that when they're living under my roof.
Mm.
And so she early on put that in my head, and I would, nuance some of what she said now, but just having that idea in my head that I really was raising my children to leave my house, not to stay in my house, but to leave my house. And it changed my interaction with them, that I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't hoarding them as much as I was trying to lovingly equip and prepare them
Mm.
for the world. And also to and I say all this, my kids are grown. I did not do it perfectly by any means. These are some of the points that I take away from
Mm-hmm.
those years. But also to begin to identify their dreams and passions and bent and skill and drive and lack of drive and all of
Mm.
that, and to nurture and foster those things in them and provide the opportunities that would enhance what God had already put in them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that even that, like all of those things that they were involved in, were hopefully setting them on a pathway, in the same path that God had already established for them. So
Right.
even in that, it was with looking toward this day when they will not be here with me, that
Mm.
they are going to go out into the world. And so it was more trying to, anyway, prep them. And I still, of course, every first day of school, I cried. I would take them to the bus stop and I would cry, or I would drive them to the
Mm-hmm.
drop and I would cry. And when they left, I cried. And
Oh,
I
I cannot
still,
even imagine.
yeah, there are still times where I want them here,
Yeah.
and they
Mm-hmm.
can't be here for every Thanksgiving, and they're not here. My son lives in New York, and I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. My daughter does live an hour away, but I still don't see her,
Yeah.
all the
She has a
time.
life and things that she's
Exactly.
doing, right, which is good.
Yeah.
So in the
Yeah.
midst of you like consciously thinking, which I love this so much, and this is
Yeah.
I'm gonna think about this for a while, I know, like
Mhm.
raising children to leave. Like,
Yeah.
and that's really what we're doing. Like we've been granted these kids for however long,
Right. Right.
that they're with us. And what an honor that God has chosen us to be their parents to do that.
So true.
How did you, in the midst of consciously thinking, I'm raising these kids to change the world, I'm raising these
Hmm.
kids knowing that one day they're going to fly away and leave and do what God's
Right.
called them to do. What are some ways that you and your husband still, like from that conversation that he had with you in the doorway,
Uh-huh.
what are some ways that you guys still were connected, even if it looked different throughout different seasons?
Yeah. So that time period, after the kids go to bed,
Mm-hmm.
that's our time. That was
Yeah.
like sacred, protected time. Even if it's like 5 minutes, all you can
Mm-hmm.
handle is to stay awake for 5 minutes. Um, that was really important time for us.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that every day that he's home, that we are connecting with each other. There was a season where my husband had a job and he traveled for about 60% of the year. So he was gone quite a bit. But even then, a phone call, we didn't have FaceTime or anything back then. It was, a phone call and just making that daily contact and um, saying to one another, "You're my person. I'm not going anywhere. You're my person." Or, especially those rough days of parenting, and when you're the parent who's having to make that decision in the moment, and then like, we're not going to have TV, and then you second guess yourself. Was that
Yeah.
too much? Was that too harsh? Oh my gosh. Um, and then having someone affirm, even if it wasn't the right decision, but I know you did the best thing that you thought you could do in that moment. So those kinds of affirmations and just being present in that 5 minutes, or sometimes it'd be an hour or whatever, that we had together, and knowing that, well, we didn't get a babysitter, that counts as a date. So
Right. Yes.
it
I
was
think that's
perfect.
important too, is to
Yeah.
realize. And I think Aaron and I are figuring that out right now. Like even that 10-minute conversation that I just shared with you
Yeah.
that we had last night, I felt like we were
Hmm.
connecting and we are both
Yeah.
acknowledging this is different and this is hard, but we're
Yeah.
committed to figuring out a new way to connect.
Exactly. You know what? There's something to me so romantic about having those conversations with your person and realizing that you're still on the same page. I
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
what that is. There's just like, you spend a whole day apart from each other and you've had your whole, whatever you experienced and whatever he experienced. You could, go to tomorrow and not realize that even though you were apart, somehow those experiences still connect you. It's the
Mm.
weirdest thing. And when you spend 5 minutes to just talk about your day, it's incredible to me. And it's very romantic to see how God is still growing you together in your separate days. So to count that as a date, I think, is a treasure.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm going to just change my mindset of what
Okay.
connecting looks like. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it counts. It
Yeah.
counts.
Are
And
you,
again, I say this all looking back.
yeah.
I was in the throes of it. We were in the
Mm-hmm.
throes of it. And sometimes we were like, I don't know if this is working. I don't know. Are we doing this right? Are we doing it? What is going on? Um, but so I'm looking back, and you're asking me questions about things that worked well for
Yeah,
us.
for
There were,
sure.
didn't all go well, but yeah,
Do you
those are
still
some good
like?
things.
I've seen you say that you still parent. I mean, your kids are grown and they're out of the house,
Yes.
and you're still parenting. Do you
I,
still now?
yeah.
You're not looking back. You're in the moment. Do you
Yeah.
go? Are we doing this right?
Yes. What the heck is happening?
Because nobody,
So
there's not a book out there about how to parent your grown child.
there really isn't. There's a book about praying that Stormy O'Mardian wrote, Praying for Your Adult Children, I think it's called. That's one that I found. But
Okay.
yeah, so of course I thought my kids turned 21 and they don't need a parent anymore. I don't know why I thought that, because I'm a person who needs a parent still.
Right.
Yeah, but it changes. And my son particularly, both of my kids are, I don't know, I love them. They're wonderful, wonderful people. My son particularly has taken a path that wasn't the one that we would have chosen for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been hard. It's been very difficult, but always loving. He's always been very loving toward us, very respectful toward us. And one day he said to me, Mom, it must really be hard. And I said, What? What's hard? He was home
Yeah.
like for Thanksgiving or something. He said, it must really be hard because I know that when you have a baby, you hold that, and he's my oldest, you hold that baby in your arms and you have all these hopes and dreams for that child. And it must really be hard when they go a different way. And I just, that melted me on the
Mm-hmm.
inside
Yeah.
to have him recognize that. But the other piece about it is that his life and his journey and the person that he is, and the conversations that we have grown my faith more than anything else in the world. The conversations, the way that he brings his journey to me And we talk about it, and he gently
Mm-hmm.
presses and challenges my faith and stretches me to open my heart to new revelations of God. And only, I mean, primarily because of my son, and his willingness to have his journey be connected to us as his parents.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most, it really is. It's been, and many people who know me have seen me struggle with this. And I've talked to my son, about how is it okay that I share this part of our story? And he's fine with that, so I'm not saying anything here that
Mm-hmm.
he would be cringing to hear.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's as I would not trade it for anything. I would not,
Hmm.
and I would, if I were to look back at that dream, those dreams I had for my son, and he was right when he was born, and looked in his eyes, I wouldn't want that for him. I want what he has. I want
Hmm.
that for him. And
Mm-hmm.
God knows best. God is working it out, and he knows exactly what he's doing. And it's so clear to see, so hard to experience many days, but really clear to see the hand of God in that. And not just for my son, but for all of us.
Mm. That's
So,
good. And it's
yeah.
something that I think as all of us that are parents, I would imagine that we all
Hmm.
do look and see like, how will we be
Yeah.
if our kids don't quote unquote turn out like we think they should or
Hmm.
travel the road that we think is best for them.
Yes.
And I think those are hard conversations, but I think it's also just this part of parenting that we don't really want to think of, especially when they're younger,
Yep.
because you actually can't even imagine it.
Nope.
Like I'm sure people that are listening that are parenting teenagers and that are
Hmm.
struggling, they're like, oh, I can imagine it. But
Yeah.
what I love most, and I've heard this in your voice, and I've heard this of other parents that have walked through kind of harder roads with kids. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying your road was hard, but you've shared a little bit.
Yeah.
I would say that the thing that I've noticed most, the parents that are walking through that or have walked through it and still have a very healthy relationship with their kids
Mm.
is the fact that they love their children more than they aren't
Yeah.
happy with what's happening.
Yes. That is such a great point. Yes. Um, at one point in the throes of me, trying to come to terms with the fact that I don't have control over my son's life, and it's his life, and I'm gonna have to let him go. Um, I clearly felt, I don't know, this may sound weird. I felt like God was impressing on my heart. I don't want to say he said to me anything, but just that your job is to love your son,
Mm,
period. The rest of it is up to God and, whoever he decides to bring into my son's life.
hmm.
And I was like, oh, I can love my
I
son.
can do that.
No, and at that point I was like, nobody can do it better than me.
Hmm.
I can love my son best of all in this whole world. And so that's what I started to concentrate on. And you're right, more than anything, I love my son. There's nothing that can make me not love my son.
Hmm.
And so I leave the rest up to God. And the more I release it and just love my son, the more beautiful the story becomes.
Mm.
Yeah.
We say that to our kids all the time. I tell my kids
Hmm.
all the time, there's absolutely nothing you could do in this world that would make me not love you.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
say that,
Hmm.
and what are they going to do now? Like not
Yeah.
take the trash out or,
Right.
not do their homework. I mean, it's pretty low bar right now what could
Yeah.
happen, but the bar gets a lot higher as they get older. And so I think even this conversation that I'm having with you, it really makes me like not reevaluate, but just really think like if I'm going to say that, then I
Yep.
really need to be prepared when they're
Yeah.
21, 17, 30,
Yes.
whatever happens,
Right.
that it's truth.
Well, and it's kind of a vow you're making to your son, right? Or to your
Yeah.
children. Because
Uh-huh.
even when we get married and we stand up there and we say, I do, sickness and health, rich or poor, we have no idea what we are
Mm.
talking about. There is no idea. My husband and I,
We're actually stupid. We
yeah,
don't
we
even know what's ahead of us.
clueless. No.
Yes.
And my husband, he'll counsel people who are getting married, and I'll say, how'd it go? And he'll come home and say, oh, they're in the land of love. You can't tell them anything. And and it's true. So same thing, like you
Yep.
stand up there and make these vows to your spouse and say, I will love you forever, but you don't know what that means. Same thing with your children. You're
So
telling them, I
true.
will love you
Yeah.
forever, no matter what. But we don't know what we're saying.
We
And
don't.
then we get to test it out. But, another thing I learned is the importance of apologizing to my children too. When I'm wrong, to go to them and say, I was wrong. I am sorry. And I have apologized to my son and my daughter as adults for things I did when they were young that I didn't know back then to say I was
Yeah.
sorry about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's it's an important lesson that I've learned
I think that's
on this little
important.
path.
Yeah, in parenting and showing our kids the gospel. I mean, here we are, we're
Yeah.
coming to them and saying that I'm not immune from needing to apologize and asking
Right.
for your forgiveness. That's so great.
Mm-hmm.
Deidre, I've seen you say that you try to do a cartwheel a day. Can you
Yes.
explain this to me?
Why would I want to do such a thing? Yeah. I that came out of a really low point in my life. I got really sick a couple years ago, a couple winters, like winter into spring, and I was stuck in my bed for a long time. Just me in my bed, in my head all day for like 2 weeks. Terrible. That was a terrible experience.
Yeah, I can
Uh,
imagine.
it just knocked the wind out of me. It made me, doubt everything and hate everything, and I was scared of everything. And as I was coming out of it, it was like winter was melting into spring. And so I would go outside and I would take walks. And I was walking one day and I was listening in my earbuds to some music. And I happened to be listening to some praise music, which was weird for me in that season because I was so mad at God about everything and I
Yeah.
wasn't listening. And I heard this song, Praise Confuses the Enemy. And something in that song made me want to do a cartwheel, but I was out in public and I didn't want to do this cartwheel because I didn't want people saying, "Who's that crazy lady walking down the street doing a
Doing
cartwheel?
cartwheels.
What's wrong
Yeah.
with her?" So I didn't do it. And the next day, I don't know, it just stuck with me. Why didn't you do that cartwheel? Why,
Yeah.
if praise confuses the enemy, why didn't you do the cartwheel? And so from that moment on, I decided I'm doing the cartwheel. And I have done cartwheels most days, not every day, but most days ever since then. And it makes such a big difference. Number one, I'm 52, right?
Uh-huh.
So doing cartwheels physically is is she gonna make it today? She's not gonna fall out of place. And so far, I've been fine. I've been able to do them, and I do them on my concrete driveway. Crazy. But yeah, I don't know. Some faiths have icons, right, to bring your mind back
Uh-huh.
to what's important in life. And it's kind of an icon for me that, yeah, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And I'm 52 and I'm still doing cartwheels. Look at
Right.
me.
I still got it, is what you're saying.
Yes. Exactly. Yep.
Oh, I love that so much. And Jess Conley's been on here before, and she talks about
Yeah.
doing her handstands.
Yeah. Oh,
And it's
yay.
like the same kind of thing. Like,
Mhm.
it's just something in you that
Oh.
when you do this, it produces something in you that you didn't know you had.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that our bodies were meant for movement. And I grew up, I was going to be in my dreams, I was going to be a ballet dancer, like with
Mm-hmm.
Steve Copeland. And I found in ballet class, I feel like I was born with ballet shoes on. So, dancing for as long as I can remember. And that has always been, physical movement has always been like an open door to spiritual experiences for me. There's just something when your body is moving, it engages your mind or turns off your mind in such a way that I'm not worrying about the future and I'm not regretting the past. I'm just in this moment right now. And it just really opens me up to stuff. So, another piece of that was having been still in the bed. And I do think
Yeah.
um, I think there's great benefit to silence and stillness. But for me, that was too long being silent and still, and it kind of messed with my head. And so to be able to explode in a way out of that in a cartwheel form was just, I don't know, a reinforcement of that idea for me that yes, God does speak to you through movement, and that's how he created you. And he wants you to get back to that, do that cartwheel. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I love it. I really love when everyone says that they have this like it seems crazy to me because I don't remember the last time I've done a cartwheel ever. Like, I have
Yeah.
no idea when I did one, but maybe I should go try to do one with my daughter to show her that I still got
See?
it.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
see what happens. Hey guys, before we get back to chatting with Deidra, I want to thank our other sponsor for today's show, and that is West Rock Coffee. I cannot go a day without my coffee, and I've had West Rock coffee, and it's amazing. From crop to cup, West Rock works with farmers on a personal level to help them grow high quality coffee. For example, West Rock farmer Christine is a farmer in Rwanda. Christine is a single mom of 9 children, and she tends to 600 coffee trees. Coffee was Christine's opportunity to provide for her children. Now that she's working with West Rock, Christine knows that she will receive a fair price for her coffee, and she's always going to be paid on time. This consistent income, it allows her to send her kids to school, put food on the table, and invest back in her farm. Guys, there are many stories just like Christine's of West Rock's impact through coffee. If you're going to drink coffee, let's think about where we're getting it from. When you drink West Rock coffee, you are sharing in a story of sustainability for farmers like Christine. You can find West Rock coffee at Kroger or go to westrockcoffee.com to find out where to buy it closest to you. I'll put the link on my webpage, jamieivey.com, if you need to go look for that. Okay, and here is the rest of my conversation with Deidra. So you also love disco and Detroit.
I do. I love them both. I think I found them. I think I found disco in Detroit. And I moved a lot I've moved a lot in my life. I think this is like my 23rd place I've ever.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, I don't remember all of them, but when I was 10, our family moved to Detroit. Well, right outside of Detroit in a little suburb of Detroit. And it was in 1975, 76 that we moved there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to this wonderful middle school, and we had the best time in our bell-bottom pants
Yes.
and our blue eyeshadow. And every weekend we would go to the Northland roller rink, and I had a pink satin jacket and I had my own roller skates, and we would jam
You were
to
working it.
disco. Yes, ma'am. Disco music on the roller rink for hours. I mean, I would be there when it opened. There would be a line around the roller rink for, we were just all there. And
Yeah.
then I'd be there when it closed. We'd be the last ones off the floor. And it was I don't know, I just have the best experiences. And I know that people have feelings about disco music, but it's just like my jam. There's a new show on Netflix, and I haven't really gotten into it yet. It's called The Get Down,
Mm-hmm.
and my husband has been watching it. And I'm not saying it to promote it because I don't know anything about it. It could be a really simple show, but I'm going to start watching it because my husband grew up listening to Led Zeppelin and The Doors and The Who and I don't know, those people.
Yes, yes.
And we always say if we had met in high school, we would have hated each other.
Opposites.
Exactly.
Yep.
But watching this show on Netflix, he said to me the other day, I'm going to have to get a disco station on Pandora. And I said, what? We've been married for 30 years. And this is the first time he has ever been open to disco music. And it's because he's watching the show The Get Down, which is set in New York City back in the 70s. And it's telling the story of disco and then, like the story of disco and hip hop overlap.
Yeah.
And one feeding into the other. And so we both love hip hop music, my husband and I. And he sees now how disco kind of fed that and
the way for that, yeah.
Yeah, made the way for it. And so he's gaining this appreciation for it, which I think it's going to make us get to our 50th anniversary.
Oh my gosh. Do you own a disco ball?
I do. I own a couple. Yes.
Of course you do.
I do. My friend Michelle bought me my very first disco ball. And she picked it up at a thrift store, and I have it's on my deck over, like we have a 2-story deck. So roof over our deck, and the disco ball hangs over our deck, over our turquoise picnic.
Oh, I think I saw that picture on your Instagram.
Yes, and then I have one in my dining room also. And the thing about it is, so my deck is right off of my dining room, and the way the light hits it at like between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, it makes those disco reflections all over my dining room and my living room. It's the best. It's just,
Those are like
it's
your
one.
favorite hours of the day.
Yes, they are. I love it. Always
That
taking pictures and sending them to my husband. It's disco in
Hey, you may send him pictures and he may come home from work and y'all may
the
listen to some
house. Yes,
disco music.
exactly. Yep, because
It's
that's what you can
disco
do.
time. That's
Yes.
right.
Right on.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. I love that so much. I am going to admit to you, that I don't think I've ever listened to disco music.
Little sister.
I know I
Okay.
was born in 78
Yeah.
and never.
That's all right. I
I'm gonna
forgive you.
I'm gonna go listen to some today on my drive.
Yeah. You gotta listen to so my favorite song is it always there are two of them, but my favorite is by Evelyn Champagne King.
What a
And it's
name. I love
no,
that.
right? Isn't that awesome? And she sings this song called Shame, Shame. And I know
Mm,
no, we don't like talking about shame, but this
mhm.
song is awesome. And I have memories of dancing on top of a car to that song.
I
It's
love
fantastic.
I love those memories.
Yeah. Yeah. So that one. And then, of course, I Will Survive. You got to listen to
Oh,
that.
for
So,
sure.
hmm
Yeah. Well, I think I've heard that one. So,
yeah.
there's
Yeah, that counts.
yeah, it counts. I'm in. I'm in. Um, Deidra, what are you loving these days? Like, what are three things that you're loving?
Mm. Well, and I just recently posted about this. Of course, the Olympics are on, right? So
Yes.
love the Olympics. Although I've been a little surprised. I haven't watched it as much as I normally have.
What's your favorite sport to watch?
Track and field,
Okay.
hands down.
It's
Yeah, I
on right
ran
now.
track.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran it in high school, and oh, yes, those just man, the physical human body.
It's
What
unbelievable.
isn't it crazy?
It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yes, I love track and field.
What did you run?
I ran sprints. So back then it was the 110 and the
Uh-huh.
10, and I ran those sprints, and I also ran those hurdles. And then I ran the 4x100, and I
Mm-hmm.
ran the 4x800.
Oh yeah.
And once in my life I ran the mile relay,
Uh-huh.
and I ran that at the end of I had run all my events, and
Because it's like it's the last race of the day.
yeah, I hate it. And I was done. I ran through, and I remember I ran through the finish line of my last race, and my coach said, "That was great. You did a great job." Our third leg of the 4x1 or the mile relay had to drop out. Can you run it? And I was like, "What?" And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I win." And he said, "Now." And I had to go right from
Oh,
and run the mile relay. So, I don't know. I just love those races, and I love to watch people run them. And so,
I ran
yeah.
track as well.
Did
I
you?
ran the quarter and the mile relay, so I get
You
it.
did. Oh gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yay for you. That mile relay is a killer.
It's a
Good.
killer. It's a killer. And my husband always makes fun of me because whenever we talk about running track, I always have to tell people that I ran in the Junior Olympics. Uh, and I
Yes.
have a big frame of my medals that I have moved around from every
No.
house.
Oh
And
my
oh, they
gosh.
never get hung up, Deidre. Don't worry. Aaron is like, there's no place in this house that we're hanging medals from when you ran in like your glory days. And I always say when I have my own office, like I want to
Yes.
have my own office, I'm putting my medals up wherever I want to put them. So
Yeah, definitely.
he tells me I need to let it go. Like this,
No,
let it
no.
go.
I think that's something you hold on to. Just hold. Your kids will be so proud to tell that story.
I
Yep.
know they probably won't even believe it because they've never seen. I mean, like I don't run anymore. I used to, but
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, so
Yeah.
track and field's your favorite.
Yep.
I love it as well.
I love that. I also love, of course, gymnastics. But another
Yes.
thing that I'm loving right now that I talked about recently is the Great British Baking Show. Have you seen
I
that?
haven't, but I think when Sarah Bessie was on here, I think she told me that she's loving it.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know why I love it. It's just, I don't know. I think that it just arrived on my radar at the perfect time. It's just a beautiful, sweet, I think it's just a kind, gentle show. But I'm not British. So maybe British people think it's not a kind and gentle show. I think it's just, I don't know. And they make these creations that are stunningly beautiful. And I watch it while I Google because I have to Google baking terminology as well as British
Okay,
terminology.
that's a
I
lot
don't
of
know what
work.
they're
It's a lot
talking.
of
It is.
investment for a
I have
show.
no idea what they're talking about most of the time, but it's so beautiful.
Are you a baker?
I am. I love to bake. I don't
Okay.
get to do it as much because it's just me and my husband now. And
Yeah.
if you bake a cake, you have to eat the whole cake.
Right.
So I don't get to do it as much anymore. But yeah, oh my gosh, I love that show. And they just have they have the British accents and they make this delicious food and they bake it. They're all in a tent, which is just a beautiful place to be because I love
Hmm.
to be outdoors. And then, of course, they tell the stories of how these bakers got to be where they
Okay,
are.
see, I do love shows that do that. Yes.
Oh my gosh. And you just get so invested in them, and they're all for each other. It's not like
Oh,
cutthroat. They're all for each other and they cheer for each other and they hope the best for each other. And I just think, let's just all move into a tent and bake things together. Just do
that is
that.
the way that we could solve a lot of the world's problems. Let's
Yes.
bake
Yeah.
for each other.
It's so true. So true. So, yeah, I'm loving that as well. I just
Okay, I love that. What else are you loving?
All right, so I'll tell you this one weird thing that I'm really loving. It's always weird when I tell this to people, but do you know what I really love is crystal deodorant? It's the strangest thing.
It's like
Do you
this
know about
natural,
it?
it's like natural deodorant.
Yeah, it's
It,
like aluminum-free deodorant. And
uh-huh.
for the longest time, my husband used it for the longest time, and he kept saying, "You should try it. You should try it. You should try it." And I would say, "It's so weird. No. Why am I going to try that? That's ridiculous. I'm not going to try that.
Right.
Surely it doesn't work, number one," I thought. And it's a crystal. Why am I going to use that? No, I'm not going to use that. And over time, of course, because we've been married for so long, I got to use the crystal deodorant. And I love it. It's the strangest thing. They have it now in a roll on form. Your people are probably
No,
like,
nope.
not listening anymore.
No, we are for this. We are for this.
So they have it in roll on form and they have it in a lavender scent, which is my favorite scent
Uh-huh.
in the world. And it's perfect. There's no aluminum. Okay. And I will tell you that we've had some scares in our family lately with breast cancer. And
So this is
so
important.
this is very important. And if I can eliminate the aluminum from my deodorant that is close to where I'd be afraid about breast
Yes.
cancer, then I'm going to do it. And so I've tried other kinds of deodorant that have no aluminum in them, but I keep coming back to the crystal. And
Okay.
so I'm just putting that out there. They've got
Hey,
lavender and they have jasmine. And I
what's the
think
brand name?
crystal.
Oh, Crystal. Just like you said. Well,
Yep.
I'm going to tell you, this is not weird to me because I use Primal Pit Paste,
Oh, yeah.
which is, I'm assuming, like kind of the same thing,
Yes.
no aluminum, healthy.
Right. Uh-huh.
Um, but I will tell you this, I love my
Mhm.
Primal Pit Paste, and I'm going to try your Crystal out as well
All
because
right. Okay. I'll
I,
try.
this is not weird to me. This is like, I like this thing
Okay.
for
All
sure.
right.
But I will tell you this, and you're going to have to let me know.
Okay.
I won't use Primal Pit Paste when I am traveling on an airplane or
Hmm.
speaking
Oh, right.
because I mean what it does, it keeps you still sweat in these
Yes.
deodorants because they're not clogging up your pores, which is
Right.
what deodorant does, right? But when
Mm-hmm.
I'm on an airplane or when I'm speaking, I cannot imagine
Yeah.
sweating. And
Right.
so I
I'm with you.
still go back to my
Yeah.
whatever kind of deodorant when I'm
Yes.
traveling on an airplane or standing in front of people speaking.
Exactly. Yeah. When I'm speaking, okay, and also, and I've said this already, I'm 52. I have hot flashes. So there are moments like speaking, for example, where
Uh-huh.
I know I'm going to need to do something other than
The crystal.
the crystal. Yes, for everyone's benefit. It's
Yes,
just
that's how I
for
feel.
everyone's benefit. And so, yes, I will. I have a little backup that I use for those occasions. And I feel better that I'm not using that all the
Me
time.
too. Yep.
Yeah. So,
And I bought this stuff for my kids as well.
oh yeah,
Because
definitely.
I'm
I think
like,
that's important. I know.
it,
I told my daughter,
they're
you got to
starting
switch.
early,
Hmm.
and we got
Hmm.
stinky people around here. And
I
so I thought
know.
maybe when they get to be in sports, they're going to be
I
like, Mom, I don't
know.
like this. But as much as I can, I'd rather them
Right.
use this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, I just had so many memories of being a child and my mother bringing me my deodorant for the first time. I just had a flashback. Okay, yeah, I remember
We
that.
all remember when someone was like, you kind of
Yep.
stink.
Hello, I brought you something, my
Yes.
mom said.
Just put it on every day.
Yep.
My kids will now be like this. We'll be driving and they'll be like, who didn't put deodorant on today?
Yes.
Because some of them, not all of them, but some of them are getting to where it's like, oh my gosh, you stink so bad. And
Yeah,
that's just
it's
the
so
worst
true.
smell. It's the
It's so
worst
true.
smell. Oh.
It is so true. Yep.
Okay. Before I ask you what you're reading, I also want to talk about your book that you have coming out
Ah,
next
yeah.
year, next April. Am
Yeah.
I right?
April. Yep. It's called One Unity in a Divided World. And I'm really excited about this book. I never dreamed, and I've heard you ask people, what's a dream that you had to put aside?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a dream that I never had to write a book. And then people started saying to me, maybe you should think about writing a book. And if I were gonna write a book, this would be the book I think that, I don't know, if I was meant to write a book or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, this is that book. Um, and it's the book really that I wanted many years ago because I always had this question about diversity in the
Mm-hmm.
body of Christ and in church, specifically in the North American church, and why I would always ask, why can't people in the church figure out how to worship across racial lines?
Mm.
And I started asking that question when I was 2. And so it's been my
Wow.
driving
Yeah.
question through my whole life. And so I thought I was going to write a book about that, right? About racism in
Mm-hmm.
the church.
Mm-hmm.
But what has happened is that God has used the issue of racism in the church to teach me about just all the ways we divide ourselves in church and how important unity is to Him, and really how that is, to me, the theme that runs from Genesis to Revelation, that God is always calling us together, and it's not just about race. So it's not a book about race in the church
Mm-hmm.
as much as I thought it was going to be, although there are examples that I use in that book. But it's really more about what I've learned about the importance of coming together. And right now, our culture is so polarized, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so important to choose a side and to um, dig our heels in a lot of the time. And it's scary to consider moving at all away from that. And
Mm.
so the book offers some stories and practical advice and scripture and just insights that I've gained in talking to others and reading other people about how to be people who move to the middle together, and how to be an example of this unity that in John 17:21, Jesus said, "This is how the world will know that I was sent
Mm-hmm.
by God, is that because of our unity. It's not because of our programs or how many people we have in church or how many times we speak or how many books we've published. It's because of how well we live out our faith together." And
Mm.
that's what's going to make the world say, "Oh, wait a minute, look at them. What's that?
Yeah.
I want more of that." And so we often wonder, why isn't the world getting it? Why don't they get it? And I think the ball is in our court. And if we could figure out how to live united, and I see us doing that in many ways,
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes the world sit up and take notice. And not just in the church, but in our families, in our communities, with our neighbors, our kids, and
Yeah,
our
I mean, you just talked about that earlier. I'm
spouses.
just thinking, this is
Hmm.
like you've been walking this out. I'm
I
sure it's been
have.
hard and helpful, but
Yes.
you've been
Yeah.
walking this through with your family.
Yes, I have, and in our church, and so I'm really excited. I'm excited that it's done. That's one thing, and I'm excited that it's going to get out into the world. I do feel like, I think everybody feels like this who writes a book about a topic like this, that you're always learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's like a snapshot. The book is a snapshot of where I am in this moment. And
Mm.
I hope I'm always learning about this, and hope
Yeah.
I'm always growing in this. So, and I know that I have grown from seeing things black and white, literally and figuratively,
Mm-hmm.
to seeing the body of Christ and the world really as being so much bigger and more united and so very important and delightful to God, and how he just has this beautiful, beautiful table set for us, all of us. And it's so, all of us, even people we now call our enemies. How do we get to a place where we want to break bread with those people? And
Mm.
I think it's possible. So,
Well,
yeah.
that's awesome. And
Yeah.
if people can go on Amazon, you can actually pre-order the book
Yeah.
now. It comes out in April. So
Yes.
it
Yeah.
sounds like a book that is probably, I would say, every generation has said is much needed because it has looked different for every generation. Because
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think this is a struggle that we have, especially
Yeah.
in the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, what a needed book right now for sure. And I'm thankful for you for putting the time in and the effort and putting your
Thanks.
words out there. And I
Thanks.
also love it when what you said, like I'm always hoping this for myself
Mm.
that I'm constantly growing. And so
Right.
I look back on things I've said or done in 10
Hmm.
years and go, man, I've grown a lot since then. And that's good.
Right.
That's
Right.
good.
Yeah.
We're all doing
Yeah.
that. So
Hmm.
awesome. Okay. So what are you reading these days?
Nothing.
Oh, you're like, I'm done with words.
Not really. I'm kind of in between. So I have a couple books that I always recommend though. So one book is called Jesus and the Disinherited. It's by Howard Thurman, and it was written, I think, in 1946.
Mm-hmm.
Still really relevant today. It's just a really great, it's not a long book. It's got, it's easy to read, but really profound. And he was very active in the civil rights movement. He was a pastor back
Mm-hmm.
then, and just, I don't know, just really profound stuff that applies even today. Like it was written in 1946, but you read it today and you're like, really?
Right now.
Huh, okay, this works for me today.
Yeah.
So that book is really great. And then the other one that I always recommend is called Healing the Heart of Democracy, and it's by Parker J. Palmer, who
Okay.
is one of my most favorite authors. And the subtitle is The Courage to Create a Politics Worthy of the Human Spirit. And
Mm.
I got this book, someone recommended it to me, and I said, ugh, it sounds so terrible and
Mm-hmm.
boring. I want to read that book. But it's by Parker J. Palmer, who's one of my favorites. And yeah, it's a book I highly recommend to people. In fact, it's going to be our book club book for my forward book club at my website next.
Oh.
So yeah, I read that and reread it over and over again. But this is a little fun thing. Just the other day, and one of the things I love about my church is we have just a lot of diversity, but also age diversity. And
Mm-hmm.
so some of my friends at church are significantly older than I. And the other day, one of my friends who's older called me over, me and my husband, to her home, and she was really blessing us. She was saying, what she had seen going on in our lives and some growth. And she said, and you're at this stage now that I remember when I was in my 50s. It was such a pivotal decade of my life. And she has written a memoir that she didn't publish, but she gave it to us. And she said, I want you to read this memoir. And it's called Are You Listening? And it's just about that decade of her life and
Mm-hmm.
how God intervened in different ways in her life and grew her. So last night, my husband and I started reading that together and reading it out loud to one another. And so that's going to be
That is
our
going to be
together.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what we're reading
And
right
she
now.
never published it.
She never published it. She said that she felt she's a very so we have all these kinds of diversity in our church, and one thing we have people who are very literal, and we have people who are pretty mystical, and everything in between. And she's one of the more mystical people. And she said, I felt like for years that God was telling me, you need to write down your story. And she kept saying, I don't want to write down my story. And he
Mm-hmm.
kept bugging her. And she thought he wanted her to write this story for publication. So she wrote it, and it's 106 pages, I think it is. And then she said, so now what do you want me to do with it? And he was like, nothing. That's
Hmm.
it. And so she's just had it. And the copy that she gave us actually has a cover letter for a publisher. Um, and she was gonna send it to them and say, hey, do you want to publish this book? But she just never has sent it, and she gave it to
Wow.
us. Yeah.
That's so special. My one of my grandfathers who passed away about 13 years
Mhm.
ago. Many years ago, a woman in his church said, "I want to write your story." And
Ah.
so she wrote a book. It was self-published. I mean, you couldn't find
Mm-hmm.
it anywhere. but I have a copy of it, and I just read it about 3 years ago.
Wow.
And it was just one of the greatest gifts I have of
Yes.
my grandfather, who was huge in my life and, passed away
Uh,
13 years and loved Jesus. And
mm,
so those are so special, those
yeah.
books that people just said, I want to write this just because I know it matters, even if it's just to
Right.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the fact that she wrote it so many, like decades ago, and she's just now handing it to someone,
It's
and that
so
someone is
crazy.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who's about to embark on writing their first book, me, and you who have written two books,
Yay.
that sounds like crazy. Like, God, do not ask me to put all that sweat and tears
I
into a
know.
book just for me.
I
I shouldn't
know,
say
right?
that, but you know what I mean.
I do. I know exactly what you mean. If I'm going to do all this, then I hope somebody's going to read it. I know.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. I remember, I just really, for my books, want the right people, the people that
mm,
God wants to read these books. That's who
yeah.
I want to read them.
Yeah.
So I
Um,
try to detach myself from the lists and big number goals.
yeah, which is hard,
Hmm.
as someone
Hmm.
who wants to achieve something. Okay, well, real quick, I have to ask you a question
Okay.
before we go because you mentioned your book club.
Yeah.
I love book clubs. I haven't been in one in years just because I
Yeah.
don't have the time. And I always say to myself, I'm going to start a book club this fall. And then I
Yes.
remind myself that I can't add anything else to my plate. But tell me about your book club that you host online because that sounds
Yeah.
appealing as well.
I know it's crazy. So it's called Forward, and the subtitle of that is to help. It's a book club to help move the conversation forward. I think that's
Oh, I
what we
like
said.
that. Mm-hmm.
And so at my blog on my website, we have lots of conversations about specifically about race. And so even and recently in this climate that and stuff that's going on in our country, it's become a really really safe place. And we've probably been having these discussions for 3 or 4 years online.
Mm,
And it's become a really safe place for people of all different backgrounds, experiences, worldviews, perspectives to dialogue safely about racial issues in our country
mm-hmm.
specifically. And so people ask the questions that you're afraid to ask in public, and I'm afraid I'm afraid I'm going to offend someone. All those things, all those questions are out there. And we had been having that conversation for so long, and every now and then people would say, "You should read this book," or I would say, "I just read this book, and you should
Mm-hmm.
read it." And then I was like, "Well, wait, we can read these books together." And so I think was that the first? No, the very first book we read because we were trying to. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. We read the first book in the Yada Yada Prayer Group series,
Okay.
which is a novel, and they're great. A friend of mine writes them. They're really great books. They're light. They don't not heavy hitting. They're not going to make you uncomfortable to read them.
Uh-huh.
It's they're really fun to read. So we read one of those, and then the second book that we read together was Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, which was that's not light. It's
Okay.
it's a hard-hitting, heavy book. And we survived, and we still love each other, and we still like each other, and we
Mm-hmm.
still talk together. And people asked all those difficult questions. And so I don't, I'm trying to remember if we've read another book since then. I think we had to take a break for summer. And then this next book we're reading is Healing the Heart of Democracy. And the original goal of the book was to read authors who come from different backgrounds than we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ta-Nehisi Coates was perfect for that. But I think this, with our current political climate, this book by Parker J. Palmer just really speaks to it teaches you how to have conversations with people you disagree with without getting angry, and
That's good.
how to learn from one another, and the importance of participating in those discussions, and um, even the importance of voting, but not so much voting, but what gets you to the poll. How are you living your life in the public square, as he calls it,
Mm-hmm.
in such a way that you have influence in your community for good. And I think as people of the way, people who follow Jesus, that's what we want to do. And
Yeah.
politics is just one way to do that. And because the climate and politics today is what it is. I think it's an important book for our time. And people don't really know where to go. They've said, I don't know where to go to figure out where my faith and politics intersect. And I feel like I should do something, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I think this is a perfect book for that. So we're
Okay,
going to
that's
start
great.
that September 5th, the week of September 11th, I think is the week we're going to start reading that. And it's 8 weeks. So it takes us right up to Election Day.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good
It'll
stuff.
be
Where do people go to join in on this fun?
come to my website, DeidraRiggs.com,
Mm-hmm.
and then just search for forward. And there's a search function on the right hand side of my blog. And yeah, and you can start reading and seeing how we got to where we are. And you can even read through the discussion to get a feel for what kinds of conversations we have. And we just grace rules supreme. That's our primary value. So you can say whatever you want and you are not going to get attacked. That's not going to happen. It's going to be
Lots of
it's
grace.
just a beautiful, beautiful group of people who participate. Yeah.
Okay, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my favorite book I read last year was Just Mercy.
Oh, yes.
And that would be a great one for your book club.
That is on our list. That book was so wonderful. Oh my gosh.
So good.
Yeah, such a good book. That book I read. Instead, I was trying to read The New Jim Crow, which was really dense for me. Dense, like thick. And, I was having a hard time getting through it, but really good information. And the new Just Mercy, I read that instead of The New Jim Crow, but I'm going to get back to The New Jim Crow. I just think they touch on the same issues.
Yeah.
But they handle them differently. And I have great respect for Michelle Alexander? I can't think of her name right now, who wrote The New Jim Crow. It's just going to take me longer to get through that book to read. So
that's on my list for sure. Have you seen, do you follow the Equal Justice Initiative on Instagram? That's
no.
Brian Stevenson, the organization that he runs, the guy that wrote Just Mercy.
I'm going to follow right now.
Yeah, follow them because I'm trying to pull it up, and of course my internet's not working, so I can't tell you much about this, but they're they have announced that they are going to open a memorial for all the people in America that have been lynched.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I am following.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I wish I could tell you where it was because I can't pull it up, but I'll put a link to the show notes. But it looks beautiful, and I'm just like, man, they're doing amazing stuff over there.
Yeah, they really are. And it's hard work.
It's hard work.
It's one of the books I reference a lot in my book that's coming out.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, really good book.
Good. It's the book I said last year everyone should read. It was just
I agree.
So fabulous.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
So many ways. Well, Deidra, this has been just fabulous.
I had a blast. Thanks for inviting me.
So much fun.
Yeah.
I will put all of the links up to everything we did, and congrats on your book.
Thanks. And same to you.
Oh, well, I got to sit down and do the hard work.
You're going to get it.
You know how they say you write a book? You sit down and you write a book.
You write a book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's going to be my fall. That's what I'm going to be doing. But anyhow, but thanks for coming on the happy hour. It's such a joy.
It was fun.
Okay, guys, wasn't that so much fun with Deidra? I literally want to head on up to her house and listen to some disco music with her. That's exactly what I want to do right now. But y'all, when she talked about loving her kids, even though some of the choices that they might make sometimes might not be what she'd picked for them, my heart was so pierced in that moment. I want this to be true for me. I tell my kids all the time, there's nothing you can do that would ever make me stop loving you. And guys, I want that to be truth. I want that to be so important to me. I want my kids to know, no matter what, your mom loves you. I loved my conversation with Deidra today. Guys, today's show was edited by Logan Garza. The music is from Jason Poe. As always, anything we talked about is going to be up on my webpage, jamieivey.com. All of those resources are there for you to check out and find out more information. Next week, on episode number 108, is my new friend, Jen Brecker. And you're going to love her story. It's one of resilience, strength, and I'll admit there's a few turns that you never saw coming. She was a lot of fun to chat with, and I know you're going to love her story. She may or may not be related to an Olympian, and that's all I'm going to say. You're going to need to tune in next week to hear the rest. Guys, enjoy your week, share this show with a girlfriend, and have a happy hour with a friend.